Right. Okay. Let's do it. It's been a beefy one. It's been an absolutely beefy weekend. It started on Friday. I settled in for the evening. Again, to me, it felt like a glass of red wine type of game. You know, I got
Always
a
is.
pizza from Pappy. It always, most nights actually, without a game or
Most
not.
afternoons, early kickoffs.
Mornings. Yeah, it kind of this wasn't the game that anyone expected. We all we were looking forward to it. You know, I think there's a crowd of about 45,000 people. We're heading up to Wembley, 817 days after England beat Germany in the Euro 2022 final, and Germany came out and said, we're going to get our revenge, actually, for this game. And that they did, going 3-0 up inside 30 minutes. Rach, can you just talk me through your thoughts and feelings? And then I'll go for the first 11 minutes of the game, because that was when 2 goals were scored. And the crowd, the levels, there was a flatness. There was a flatness that kind of etched in. But yeah, talk me through your thought processes at this point.
My thoughts at that time were, oh Jesus.
Shit.
Yeah, pretty much. Not just, the actual game, but then you think about everything that's going to come after it, how people are going to react to it. I'm always here to provide the balanced glow on this pod.
Of course.
But yeah, you knew this was going to be a dramatic catastrophizing of results, especially, the areas that people have been concerned about were exposed. And I do think a lot has been drawn from the result. Understandably, I think the first 30 minutes was the worst I've seen England play ever. Mm-hmm. I think if you're going to do that, do it now. That's one thing I'd say to fans. You'd rather your team be doing that now than in a Euros, getting the kick up the arse they need. Mm-hmm. But equally, I was super excited every time England went forward. Which, is something that, again, people have been concerned about England not putting the ball in the back of the net. And actually, it felt like every time either team went forward, there was going to be a goal. Mm-hmm. Because, yes, Germany started very well, 3-0 up in 30 minutes. But they were a bit like, sure, fuck the defending as well. Like, England can't do it, sure, why are we bothering? So there was an element of, chaos in terms of defending from both teams. I thought England were unlucky to not go in at half-time with more goals. Mm-hmm. I thought it was pretty incredible that they got themselves back to 3-2. But, to hit the bar, to have a goal ruled offside, to miss an open goal, everything was quite chaotic about it. But also, if you kind of zoom out and look at the wider game, you're like, that was a mad game. That kind of was an exciting game. But the opening 30 minutes were fucking terrible. Not at all enjoyable. It's a weird kind of a roller coaster.
Oh, 100%. I think the drama of the game is everything you wanted, because I think there was so many moments that you thought England were going to come back into it, and then Germany would score another goal. And I think, there was a couple of near misses. I mean, that one, obviously it was, a really sort of moving and touching moment just before the game, because they announced that all the players would be wearing black armbands to commemorate the loss of Ella Toon's father, and which was absolutely beautiful from the team. But there was a moment in the game that I thought that she was going to get that goal, and she did this beautiful back heel to Russo, and I thought that was it, and you could tell kind of the disappointment on her face. I think she kind of, it felt almost like she wanted to get that for her dad. That was kind of like the sense that I got. Like, Russo went straight over to her, kind of like put an arm around her and stuff. So I think particularly sort of emotional moment there. But yeah, I think it felt like chaos from the 4th minute, the first goal. Just to take everyone back, it was the back pass from Leah, went absolutely astray, obviously sort of not looking where the pass really went. Millie Bright's then chasing up the pitch, and then it was kind of like, well, Leah's kind of messed up, so Millie Bright is going to cover her back and completely take out.
They all had a responsibility in the goals. It was really nice that they spread that out amongst the back line.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, everyone had a hand in the chaos that unfolded, and then from minute 4, obviously with Julia Gwynn scoring the penalty, it kind of felt like, okay, well, is this going to be the kick that England need to kind of get themselves back in the game? And
nope.
Then literally 7 minutes later, Gwynn again with a beautiful goal, got absolutely clinical from the Germans. So to me, it started to really, when we sort of look at some of the discourse that's happening online, a lot of it is focused on the defence. I mean, there's a particular clip, there is a ball that's played from the left-hand side on the left wing, and it goes completely over the heads of like the 4 defenders at the back who are sat pretty much probably within touching distance of each other.
To the right of the centre circle, all of them. It's like when you watched kids play and they all just follow the ball, and you've got like 2 German players on the opposite side of the pitch. You're like, lads, is anyone aware that there's other players there coming down? No, ball's over there, lads. We need to go over there and we need to stay there.
100%. And that switch, I think, was like the moment that everyone's kind of picking up on, like, what the hell are we doing? And I think then there's also that a small criticism of, well, I say small criticism, I think there's been quite a lot of criticism of Hannah Hampton and sort of her positioning for that particular goal, but also her performance throughout. I did see sort of something a couple of days ago about Hannah sort of turning off her comments on her socials, I think in response to maybe some of the criticism that's happened. So not a fan of that at all. Like, I appreciate there needs to be a level of criticism with players who are, who haven't performed well, or obviously the entire squad sort of did have a hand in what went down on Friday, but to get to a point where a player needs to do that, it feels like a step too far.
There's a difference between criticism and abuse, and criticism's fine. We're going to do that when you're a top side and there's a lot of expectation on you, and there's going to be eyes on the goalkeeping position, because that's a big topic of conversation. And criticism's fine. Like, it's shit. She'll know that there's areas that she would have wanted to improve on. The defence certainly know that they didn't play well. Like, I'm not going to say we don't need to tell them, because that's our job, but there is a level of criticism that is going to come with the job, but they're people and we don't need abuse, and there is a difference.
Definitely, 100%. Okay, let's talk about the attack then, because going forwards, like you said, was a very spicy affair. I mean, Russo looked sharp. Beth Mead, I thought, had a
good game. I'm sorry, I've seen again some criticism and abuse of her, and whether it's kind of carried on over from the Arsenal abuse she's getting, but I was really impressed with Beth Mead. I was really impressed with Russo, Hemp. That front 3 looked so exciting. That second goal was a thing of beauty. And I think that's something that England will look at and say, when we're playing well, that's what we can do. Like, that's, you're not always going to play at your peak level all the time, right? But you're going to find moments in games where you're like, that is what we want to be doing all the time. And that second goal was absolutely class. I thought the ball out from Russo, me taking the ball, being absolutely selfless, cutting it back to Stanway. And I think Stanway played really well. I think in the past we've seen Russo dropping deep and no one stepping forward when she does that. Stanway was that player. Whether it was the fact that, Bayern Munich was just on the score sheet and she felt like, you know what, I feel left out, I'm going to go and bag a couple of goals. Because I think the first 5 goals were all scored from Bayern Munich players, which was hilarious. But yeah, I thought Stanway had a really good game, and I thought Beth Mead had a really good game, and those front 3 looked super exciting. And I know, when people were talking more widely about what changes they would have made, etc., and people were like, well, if LJ was fit, I'd put her in for Beth Mead. Interesting. I was really impressed with Beth Mead's tracking back. I was really impressed actually with all the forwards tracking back. Some of the best defensive moments, I think, actually came from the front 3 coming back and providing cover. And I think Beth Mead does that very well. So it was really nice to see Russo and Mead playing with the freedom and creativity that they've kind of been lacking at Arsenal, and to see that shift from, last week to now was amazing. And actually that was a really exciting thing.
I think, for me, one of my standout players, definitely Georgia Stanway, but Lauren Hemp, I thought she had an absolutely outstanding game.
She's unplayable.
I was going to say, I think, every time I see her, like, she's so understated and she's so kind of low-key, I think, as a general persona, that, like, when she has these performances, you're kind of like, my God, like, there are some players, I think, in these moments who have the head about them to kind of carry the team. Even when the team aren't doing particularly well, they are still the people who you can kind of rely on to, like, pull out incredible performances. And I feel like Stanway and Hemp were those people. And to be credited, also Lucy Bronze as well. I thought she had a really, really good game. But yeah, Hemp for me, 100%. I think player of the game for me. Yeah, all day.
Her consistency, I think, is what's most impressive. And I think you often have a player who'll have a good season, and then it's hard to sustain that the next season. And it doesn't necessarily mean they have a bad season, but you're always then compared to your best season. For me, Lauren Hemp, has had consistently impressive seasons for both Manchester City and for England. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so impressive to be able to sustain that level of intensity in her game, because she is an intense player. She goes at you with speed that never really seems to drop. And I think, as you say, to have that like, she's still young. To have that maturity of being a player that can step up in moments where the team is struggling is super impressive, because you just think, where's her ceiling, you know, with the age that she's at now, and she's got plenty of years left in her. To think that she's at this level already is incredible.
She's 24. She's 24 years old. Like, she could have another decade left of her career and some. So, yeah, I thought she was absolutely brilliant. I think we should focus a little bit on Sarina Wiegman's team selection. She went with her tried and tested starting 11. Do we think that she could have taken a few more risks? Grace Clinton, Jess Park, Aggie Beaver-Jones, Alex Greenwood, all on the bench. I know a lot of people were asking questions around whether Leah should have started and Alex Greenwood should have started in her place. I think that was probably a fair comments to make. I don't think Leah necessarily had her best game. I think she'll probably be very much aware of that at this point. But yeah, I thought when Alex came on, I thought there was a sort of shift in the mentality of the crowd, and also a shift a little bit with the back line. But yeah, what were your thoughts, Rach, on that?
That's probably the one area I'd agree on. And I do think there's a lot of people just saying Leah's out of form. Leah's not match fit. She's been, she had that concussion. She'd been taking a little while to come back from that. So hadn't necessarily been playing full 90s for Arsenal or necessarily starting for Arsenal. And I think that's an important context. So I think if a player isn't necessarily starting for club, maybe don't start them for country, particularly in a big game like that, because it puts them under an awful lot of pressure to be suddenly that level immediately from the get-go. I understand Sarina Wiegman wanted to give her minutes. I totally get that. For me, I probably would have switched it. I probably would have started Alex and brought Leah on, just in that for that to give her the minutes. I also. One sec, I'm going to wait till my dog stop barking because my stepdad's coming down the stairs.
I love that he's getting involved in this debate. What does he think about this? Leah and Alex, yeah.
Okay, they stopped. I also think as well, and it's something that was picked up on in the post-match, and Sarina said that it was a choice they'd made, but playing Leah and Millie in the left and right rather than the other way around, because I think actually having Leah and Lucy together is better than Millie and Lucy, because Lucy tends to bomb up the pitch. You need someone quick who's able to cover that space. Yeah. And I think putting Millie Bright next to, say, a Jess Carter, you have that balance of speed between that pairing. So I think that didn't help either. You could also see that they were all right-footed. It was something Tim Stillman pointed out on Twitter, but having the back line all right-footed, at that moment, the amount of times they were lopsided during counter-attacks was incredible. And I thought, like, it just felt like everyone kind of had a bit of an off game. And I think, I probably would have started Alex Greenwood, not only for better balance in that pairing with a left-footed player, but also just having someone who's maybe a little bit fresher for the first 60 minutes or so. So I can understand people saying that maybe putting in a Park over a Toon. But I think in a game like that, right, you want to win. You're at Wembley against Germany. I can understand wanting to start what you deem to be your best 11. I think had she started a very changed lineup and got hammered, she'd have been criticised. Mm-hmm. I think if you start your best 11 and lose, you're going to get criticised. So I think either choice that she would have made, a win was the only acceptable outcome, essentially. So I can understand the criticism, but I can also understand why she might say, I want to put out a stronger 11 because I want to beat Germany at Wembley.
For sure. I think, it was quite interesting. I heard from Nikita Paris, who was on comms, I think, for 5 Live for the game. That's the first time I've actually heard Nikita Paris on comms. But she was sort of saying, Sarina is not a reactive manager. She's not someone who will see that result and go, oh gosh, we need to completely spice things up and change things. She's very much a kind of, and we've seen that, the consistency that she has. And I think it's about sort of, maintaining that consistency, but also giving players a little bit more chance, I think, to kind of prove themselves in those kind of opportunities when, again, they're friendlies, they're big stadium games. There's an opportunity there to kind of give younger players who may not have started in those kind of situations before those kind of minutes to kind of just see what they can do and how they cope with the pressure. So yeah, completely understand. Looking forward to the next game, obviously England play another friendly against South Africa tonight in Coventry. Wiegman said there will be different faces in the team this time round, and it's a chance to see different connections. We had a question in from a listener, Sinead, who asked on Instagram, who would you like to see? I think for me, Grace Clinton. I think, yeah, 100%. And I don't know what's going to happen with the goalkeeping situation as well. I don't know whether she's going to keep Hampton in. I can't work that out, or whether Earps is going to get a run out. She hasn't started the last 4 games under Wiegman. So, and I mean, I think it was when, because Wiegman was asked in the press conference as well, like whether, that was it now, like whether Hannah kind of had the number 1 shirt or the number 1 position, and whether that was kind of set. And Wiegman saying absolutely not. Like the competition is still very much kind of active between the keepers. So I don't know whether this will be an opportunity for Earps to step in. She's obviously, I think, PSG-wise, I think things seem to be on the up. She's put in a couple of really good performances from them. So I'm wondering whether this could be sort of a bit of a confidence boost for her, sort of coming back into the fold. So yeah, I'd like to see Earps. I'd like to see Grace Clinton for me for this next game.
Yeah, I think the thing is, I think they would have gone into these 2 games with a plan. And I guess what Keats is saying is, she's not going to look at that Germany result and say, I now need to change what we're going to do in the next friendly, because that's not what the friendlies are for. Like, approaches to friendlies are very different to approaches to tournaments. And I think Wiegman is a very good tournament manager, because they'll take it game by game and make the tweaks and changes that they need to make to get the win. Whereas when you're in a friendly and you're losing 3-0, you're not going to suddenly pull the rug out from your game plan, because at the end of the day, you need to be tested in these moments to be able to see what your teams can do in these moments.
For sure.
So it's kind of that reminder to people of, you need to look at some of these results in context and what the team and the manager wants to get out of it. So I think we're going to see different players in the next game. I think that was always going to be the case, and I don't think it's necessarily, maybe people are going to be like, she's dropped her captain. That's not that. I can understand people wanting to pull out that narrative, but that's not really.
They're not reactive changes.
It's not a thread to pull, really. It's a friendly, and she'll want to see. I do think we'll see some younger players getting the opportunity. We might see some changes in defence. I'd like to see some changes in defence to see, at the right back position, can we get someone in there that hasn't had loads of. I know she likes to play Maya in a full back position rather than central. Just to kind of give players minutes in that position, so that it's, like you say, they're under a bit of pressure in a match. And it's not just going to be at a tournament when someone gets injured and suddenly you're like, oh God, I have to step in here. So I'm excited. I think we'll get some. It's going to be another test. That's the other thing, right? It's not going to be Germany at Wembley, but it's not going to be an easy game necessarily either. It's going to provide a different test for England, and I think that's really important with the 4 games they've got over these 2 windows, is that each one provides a really different test, which will challenge them. But I just think people need to. Don't get too panicked, all right? You don't need your team peaking 7-8 months before a tournament. They've lost 6 games in 54 under Wiegman. It's really not the end of the world, lads.